Simple interest is a fee that is charged to a person when they loan money from a bank, a credit card, a car company, or other places. To find the amount of simple interest, we use the formula I equals PRT. In this formula, I represents the amount of interest paid, P is the principal, and the principal stands for the amount borrowed or invested. R is the rate, which is the interest rate as a percent. When we use this formula, we have to make sure that our interest rate, even though it is given to us in a percent, is used as a decimal in our formula. And T represents time in years. This represents how many years you had the loan for. So let's look at a few examples. To buy a car, Mitchell borrowed $17,000 for 3 years at an annual simple interest rate of 9%. If it takes him 3 full years to pay off the loan, how much interest will he pay? Well, again, we're going to use our formula I equals PRT. But let's figure out what we have here. So we have I, P, R, and T. It says first that Mitchell borrowed $17,000. That's going to be our principal amount because principal is the amount that you borrow to begin with. Then it says he does this for 3 years. So that's going to be our time, 3 years. And we know that he's using an annual simple interest rate of 9%. So 9% is our rate. Now, I need to remember that when I put my rate into my formula, I cannot use a percent. So I'm going to need to change 9% to a decimal. To change a percent to a decimal, I remember that I'm dividing it by 100, which is the same as moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Well, there's an invisible decimal behind my 9, and I need to move it 2 places to the left. When I do that, I have a space right here, and I'm going to put a 0. So my rate is actually 0.09. Now, the question asks, how much interest will he pay? So I don't know how much Mitchell is going to pay in interest, so that's what I'm looking for. Now that we know all of the parts of our formula, we can plug in to find I. So our principal is $17,000, which we're going to multiply by the rate, which is 0.09 or 9%. And we're going to multiply all of that times 3 years. So now all we have to do is plug those numbers into our calculator and multiply. And when we multiply this, we get 4,590. This means that Mitchell is going to pay $4,590 in interest. Now, that is not the only thing that he has to pay back. Remember, he borrowed $17,000, so he has to pay back the $17,000 that he borrowed for the car. And he also will be paying $4,590 in interest as a fee for borrowing the money. Now let's look at this problem. Keith's parents deposited $2,500 into his savings account as a college fund when he was born. How much will Keith have in his account after 18 years at a yearly simple interest rate of 3.75%? So let's see what we have here. If Keith's parents deposited $2,500, then that is our principal amount. Then it says that they left it in his account for 18 years, so that is the time. They used an interest rate of 3.75%. Well, we know that if we're going to put 3.75% into our formula, it needs to be in the form of a decimal. And yes, this number does already have a decimal, but it is still written as a percent. So we need to convert it to a decimal by moving our decimal 2 places to the left. So this will be our new decimal, and we're going to fill this empty spot with a 0. So the rate that we're going to use is 0.0375. That means that we don't know the amount of interest that is being paid on his account. So we're going to plug into our formula I equals P, which is 2,500, times R, which is 0.0375, times T, which is 18. Now all I need to do is multiply all of these together, so I'm going to plug that into my calculator. And when I multiply, I get 1,687.5, which is the same as $1,687.50. Now, this is the amount of money that Keith's account earns while it is in the bank. But the question asks, how much will Keith have? I know that Keith started with $2,500 and he earned $1,687.50 by keeping the money in the account. So to find out how much is in his account, I'm actually going to add those two together. So I'm going to add $2,500 plus $1,687.50, and that tells me that Keith had a total of $4,187.50 in his account at the end of 18 years. This problem says a bank offers an annual simple interest rate of 7% on home improvement loans. How much would Tony owe if he borrowed $8,000 for 18 months? So let's look at what we have. We know that we have an interest rate of 7%, and I know that I need to change that into a decimal. So there's an invisible decimal behind that 7, and I would move that decimal 2 places to the right, and this would become 0.07. So I have an interest rate of 0.07, or 7%. I know that Tony borrowed $8,000, and that is going to be the principal amount. And I know that he borrowed this for 18 months. Now I have to be careful here because the time is not 18 months. Remember that in this formula, time is always in years, and this is given to me in months. So I need to figure out how many years make up 18 months. Well, I know that there are 12 months in a year, so to figure out how many years are in 18 months, I'm just going to do 18 divided by 12. Well, when I divide 18 by 12, I get 1.5. That means that 18 months is the same as 1.5 years. That's what I need to use for my time. So for this, I again don't know my interest, so I'm just going to plug everything else into my formula. I equals 8,000 times 0.07 times 1.5. And then I'm just going to multiply all of these together, and I get 840. Now, this means that 840 is the amount that Tony will owe in interest. But it says how much would Tony owe, not how much would he owe in interest. I know that he would owe $840 in interest, but he also borrowed $8,000 from the bank. So total, he is going to owe $8,000 that he borrowed plus an additional $840 for interest. So the total amount owed is going to be 8,000 plus 840, which is $8,840. For this problem, it says that Mackenzie invested $3,500 in a mutual fund at a yearly rate of 6%. She earned $945 in interest, so for how long was the money invested? So let's look at what we have here. I know that Mackenzie invested $3,500. That is our principal amount since that's what she first invested. And she invested it at an interest rate of 6%. Now again, 6% needs to be changed to a decimal. So there's an invisible decimal behind my 6, and I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the left, which is going to give me 0.06. Then I know that she earned $945 in interest. So this means that the amount of interest here is $945. This time, the question is asking me how long was the money invested. So this time, I don't know the time. Now, I'm still going to plug into my same formula, which is I equals PRT. But for this part, I actually know I, and I is $945. I know that P is 3,500, and I know that R is 0.06. What I don't know is T, so I'm going to leave my variable. Now, what I've created is an equation that I can solve. The first thing I need to do is multiply 3,500 times 0.06. And when I do that, I get 210. So I haven't done anything with 945, so I just rewrite it. I multiplied these to get 210, and I'm going to leave my T. Now I see that I have a normal equation, and I want to isolate my variable of T, so I need to get rid of my 210. I'm going to do that by dividing by 210 on both sides of my equation. These would cancel to leave me with T and my equal sign, and 945 divided by 210 is 4.5. This means that the money was invested for 4.5 or 4.5 years. Next, I see that Mr. McGee borrowed $8,000 for 4 years to remodel his restaurant. If he repaid a total of $10,320, at what interest rate did he borrow the money? So if I'm using I, P, R, and T, we're going to figure out what we have. We know that he borrowed $8,000, so that's the principal amount borrowed. And he did this for 4 years. So the time here is 4 years. Then we have to be careful here. He repaid a total of $10,320. Well, we have to remember that when we repay the money, we're repaying the original principal amount plus the interest. So 10,320 is not the amount of interest, it's the amount that he paid total. Well, I know that to find the interest, I would subtract the total amount that he paid and the principal amount he borrowed to find out how much he paid in interest. When I subtract 10,320 minus 8,000, I get 2,320. So I know that the amount of interest that Mr. McGee paid was 2,320. Now, the question asks, what was the interest rate? So let's plug into our formula. Our formula is I equals PRT. I know that I is going to be 2,320. My principal is 8,000. I'm multiplying this times R, which I don't know. And my time is 4. Now I can just solve this like a normal equation. So 8,000 times 4 is going to give me 32,000. So I have 2,320 equals 32,000. And then I have R that I haven't done anything with. So it's 32,000 R. Now I need to get R by itself. So to do that, I am going to divide by 32,000 on both sides of my equation. When I divide this, I get 0.0725. On this side, these will cancel to leave me with R. That means that the interest rate is 0.0725. But we remember that rates are always represented as percents. This rate is in decimal form, and I need to change it to a percent. So I need to move my decimal 2 places to the right. This makes a percent of 7.25% interest rate.